Hi there, welcome to Friday Forum Live, broadcasting from Point Blank Music School here in Hoxton, East London. I'm Marcus Barnes and I'm joined by Heny today. Heny is a dubstep pioneer, pirate radio veteran, and he's known for his soulful, sort of dreamlike approach to dubstep. Nice to have you here, Heny.
No, pleasure. Thanks, Marcus. Pleasure.
Thanks for coming in.
Waited a long time for this, so it's pretty good to be here after all these years, man.
Nice one.
Really good.
Before we get into the Friday Forum Live, I just wanted to recap on a few highlights from this week. Earlier in the week, we had a brand new deconstruction of the Harlem Shake by our Point Blank tutor, Paul Crossman. Head over to the YouTube channel or stay locked after this broadcast and you can check that out. Also, we're giving away £700 worth of gear from Vestax and UDG. Head over to Facebook and you can find out more about that. And lastly, if you stay onto the YouTube channel, just subscribe and you can get lots more tutorials just like this one. So, Heny,
Yes.
Thanks for coming in, man.
Thank you once again, man. Pleasure. Bit hectic the last few weeks, but I finally made it today. so yeah, man.
So, first of all, as I said in the intro, you're sort of known as a dubstep pioneer.
Yeah.
And you've been there since the very early days. I read that you sort of went to Forwards when it was first kind of kicking off.
Yeah.
Can you tell me about those first kind of sort of early days, how it was for you, sort of coming off the back of house and garage and jungle and stuff, and how you kind of made your first steps into dubstep?
Yeah. Yeah. Pretty much when I was well, basically, I started DJing officially, actually buying records to be a DJ. Around 1997. I literally just started secondary school. And I mean, I was always buying records from when I was about 5 years old, from, the late 80s, early 90s and stuff. So I was always into music. My dad was a musician and stuff, but I always wanted to be a DJ when I discovered the whole, jungle scene. Like 1994, I was only 7 years old, but that year is still apparent in my memory. You know what I mean? Listening to pirate stations like Weekend Rush. I mean, it didn't last long, so that ended. But Cool FM was, the biggest station at the time.
Yeah, I used to listen to
Cool
FM,
FM, 94.5.
Yeah.
Still on there today, which is always a good thing, But there was other stations like Don FM, Flex FM, which I'm now a part of now. But Cool FM just had such a massive impact on me. But I was too young to DJ, too young to go to the record shops, too young to go to the clubs or anything like that. So I just, kept on buying like tape packs off my cousins and stuff like that. They actually used to ask me to save money and give them money for it. It's a bit of a disrespect when I think about it. But,
well, you earned it, then you earned your music.
Yeah, I had to earn my stripes, like kind of thing. But yeah, just that little period there in the mid-90s was very important to me. So by the time I became a DJ in 97, everything had changed. Like the face of pirate radio changed. Everything was all drum and bass jungle. And then everything just kind of swerved over to house and garage. And that's where I kind of found my forte within the whole DJ thing. So, you could say I started off officially as a house and garage DJ.
Right.
And, after a few years, the garage thing became very, very kind of generic and formulated after a while. I think when it got to around 99, 2000. But that was on the commercial side of things. Yeah. But on the underground, things were getting really interesting. Producers like Steve Gurley, LB, Groove Chronicles, Zed Bias. There's a lot more artists, but just those main producers there, they kind of really stood out for me, and they were kind of taking the music, the garage thing into a different direction. And a lot of people were scared of that. But for me, I was young, and I was, you could say, even kind of vulnerable, but it's like I just had an ear for, innovation. I liked to hear something that was challenging, and it just kind of just took me into that direction of, where, things was always moving forward, but in a nice, natural way rather than it being forced. So eventually, around, 2001, I was doing a lot of record shopping, and I found myself working in the record shops like Release the Groove, Uptown Records, and all of that. So that's where I kind of got to know a lot of people through the industry. And basically, I'll never forget it. I remember I went down to, I was actually working in the record shops these times, and I actually went down to Big Apple Records, because the Big Apple always used to get certain records that we wasn't getting. And Hatcher was working down there, and I was listening to him on Upfront FM 99.3 back those days, and he was like one of the most standout DJs. I mean, obviously everybody was always on about EZ, and for me, EZ, technically, DJ-wise, still to this day, he's like the greatest inspiration, you know, massive influence on the way how I DJ. But there was other DJs that were doing different things, you know, rather than EZ, like people like Hatcher, Martin Lana, those kind of people. And I went down to Big Apple, and I'll never forget it. Hatcher just gave me this flyer. He was like, look, this is the first forward. You better be there, kind of thing. And that flyer just changed my life, going to Velvet Rooms and Charing Cross. And yeah, just went on from there, really. But I would really say when I kind of really realised what was going down was when Forward stopped having its nights down at Velvet Rooms, because it actually closed down. And then it moved to Plastic People. And at that time, I was working at Release the Groove. Youngster was working at Black Market. We just became friends. The very first forward at Plastic People, me and Youngster rolled together. I think even, I'm sure, I might be wrong, but I'm sure even Chase from Chase and Status Soul, he was with us as well. And we just rolled down there, and that sound system in that club, man, I was like, whoa, this is some different stuff. It was on a Thursday night, you know what I mean? And I just love the surroundings, like, it's because obviously it's just down the road from here. I just love the surroundings. I just kind of felt this aura that something was about to happen.
Something
and that's,
new,
and that's when I said to myself, yeah, this is, you know, whatever this is, this is something exciting.
And
so
at that kind of period, has anyone kind of given it a name? I mean, obviously, Forwards kind of came to the fore as this new kind of club night, but has anyone kind of given like it, you know, because there's always subgenres with any kind of music.
Of course.
Had anyone kind of gone, yeah, this is the new thing, or this is this, or this is that, or was it just kind of like, well, the music that's being playing there sounds different?
Yeah, well, to be honest with you, in all honesty, those times there, you know, everything was all garage. And in 2002, I just remember Easy going on Kiss, and you know, he was calling, like, because there was like this kind of breakbeat era, like where DJ Zinc was like the most apparent producer. You know, from him being very successful with the whole drum and bass jungle thing. And then, you know, it hit 99, 2000, and then, you know, he'd done the A-list, like the Running series, the Jamming, you know, he was doing a lot of remix work. And that little period there, you know, this is when I was like, well, it's not really garage, but garage DJs were playing it. Like, I even remember that Azido the bass, EZ, you know, played it. He broke that record, and it wasn't a garage record, but it's just weird. It was just like, fitted in, like, kind of thing. So I just remember EZ going on Kiss, and he was saying grimy beats. This is grimy beats, and that was actually like my email address. Yes, and that was all the way back in 2001. So that was actually my first record label, and that was when I put out Silky's first 12, Dark Square. We was both 15 years old, didn't have a clue about the music industry. We was just hungry. I was just doing A&R work for Release the Groove. And, you know, people always asking me, like, what is this? What is this? And I was like, I don't know, like, kind of thing. And I remember people used to kind of just take the mic and used to say, you know, oh, this is bongo music, Congo music, mad people's music, crazy people's music. It's always the way. If anything, we was getting cussed. You know what I mean? But when I think, for me anyways, I mean, I didn't actually know this until afterwards, but I think Accelerator done a highlight on Horsepower Productions, and they, you know, called it dubstep or whatever. But I actually didn't come across it. I actually found out about this afterwards. But for me, when we was going forward, I remember when Hatcher recorded his first mix for Temper, Dubstep All Stars. And that's, for me, that's when the name stuck. And that was like 2002, late 2002, 03 times. Cool. And it's like when the name came, it was like, okay, we can actually identify it, that kind of thing. But I was always a part of the grime scene as well. And the grime scene took grimy and the media kind of just grime.
Yeah.
So like because I always say to people, grime and dubstep was born at the exact same time.
Completely.
It came spawned up from the same things,
Mm-hmm.
but the media was all over the whole grime thing.
Yeah.
Whereas with the dubstep thing, people just didn't want to know. But we just cracked on. We just kept going down forward. Hatcher was cutting his dub plates, and you know, Youngster was going to rinse, doing his thing. And we was, for me anyways, even though I was there right at the start, you know, I wasn't really, you know, right at the top or anything. I was still kind of young, trying to find my way. I actually did write some tracks that almost got signed to Ammunition. I remember Sarah called me in for a meeting, and I remember walking into her office and LB's just sitting across like the room from me, and I was like, damn, like, what am I doing here? But it never happened. I was going through for a bad time in my life personally. I'm kind of glad though, because when I look back, I still got I can't find the original file, but I found the acetate of the track, and it's like, thank God, I never got this out, like, you know what I mean? So
Blessing in disguise.
Yeah, definitely, most definitely. Man.
It's kind of funny, isn't it? Because I was listening to the music at exactly the same time, and there was a point where there was no differentiation between grime and dubstep, really, apart from the fact that
thing. It was like different scenes, but the rules were kind of the same in that sense. And I think where the rules started to split was because the grime thing became a lot more MC based.
Yeah, that's it.
You know, that's where for me, I kind of said to, because you know, I remember doing radio shows and MCs were trying to tell me what to play, and I was like, you can't be telling me that. I'm a man of my own. You know, I like to play what I feel in my heart. I mean, don't get me wrong. Obviously, when you're young, you can get caught up in a little hype and you can, you know, try and please people. But I quickly realised that wasn't for me. Yeah. So I kind of stepped away from that. But now that I stepped away from it, it's like I'm like grime's biggest fan. I appreciate the music. I appreciate the energy and everything. But with the whole, you know, forward movement, it was just like free music, man. It was just like you could just experiment, do what you want. No one's not telling you anything. And back them days there, you know, you won't really hear anything on the radio first time round. It was like, you're going to hear it in forward.
Yeah, yeah.
And when you heard, you know, what Hatcher was playing, or Youngster, whoever else, on that sound system, it was just mind-blowing, man. It like really did change my life. And I quickly knew then that whatever this was, it was going to, you know, become something worldwide. It was going to change the way how we live and everything. And, you know, when I came across Screaming Benga, you know, around 2002. I heard them on a radio station called Flight FM 101.5, and Hatcher was playing on there at that time as well. And I found out that they were using Fruity Loops. And I'd been using Fruity Loops for about, probably around the same time as them, about 6 months to a year. Silky actually got me onto Fruity Loops at the time. It was called Fruity Loops, it's FL Studio now. I started on Reason, and I was hearing their tracks, and I was just amazed at like what they was doing. And because the thing is, I wasn't just hearing it; I was hearing it in a club. You know what I'm saying? And for me, it was just like, damn, these guys are the same age as me. And the thing is, back then, everybody was like, you can't use Fruity Loops, man. You can't do nothing. But Silky always said to me, and I even worked out, it doesn't matter what you use, it's how you use it.
Yeah, completely. Man.
You know, and straight away I was like, and everybody knows this, anybody that knew me then, I was saying, you know, them guys there, they're going to be worldwide superstars, and look now. You know what I mean? Everybody was knocking me for it. Everyone was like, oh, yeah, right, yeah, that's crazy people. There's no girls in the dance, who's going to care about that? that's what it was back then. So yeah, man, but you know, those early experiences there, you know, I cherish them moments, you know, every single day. Like, there's not a day that doesn't go by and I don't think about those moments.
Man.
You know?
I kind of feel the same way, and I was only listening to it, you know.
Yeah,
like,
it doesn't matter if you're a DJ, producer, listener. You know, if it was in your heart, you felt a part of it, and you know, we was all kind of representing the same thing.
Yeah,
so yeah, great times, man. No doubt.
You just mentioned that you felt like it was a real sort of free form of music, and you could do anything you wanted with it, which kind of leads me into talking about the music that you make, because in comparison with, say, even like Screaming Benga to an extent, but the kind of dubstep that's become prevalent now is this kind of angry, loud, quite brash music. But the stuff that you were making, and Silky and Chrome Star and all you guys, was very soulful and had sort of like real sort of dreamy pads and lush, a real lush feel to it. Completely like the opposite to what people sort of call dubstep now, you know? Yeah, definitely. Where did that kind of come from? What kind of inspired you to produce that kind of sound?
Well, you know, I mean, for me anyways, I was always into music from the day I was born. So I grew up on, you know, soul, funk, boogie, you know, all that kind of stuff. Even like subconsciously, like even people like Heny, you know, like dreaming. I mean, I wouldn't go out, back then I wouldn't ask my mum, oh, mum, can I go and get this Heny record? But I used to hear it on the radio, on the commercial radio stations, and it just used to just make me feel a certain way. I just like the hairs used to just stand up. But I wasn't able to express my feelings to anybody, so it was all like kind of just locked up, you know, within my system. And it's only as I got older I realised what I really, really appreciated musically, you know. But, you know, for me anyways, what was always intriguing, despite me growing up on soul and all of that kind of stuff, listening to jungle music, you know, hardcore jungle, and just hearing, you know, even feeling the raw emotion of those tracks. I mean, I was like 7 years old when I was listening to Cool. And, you know, there was certain tracks, don't get me wrong, I love dark music, because dark music's still emotional. You know, it's just a different form of an emotion. But, you know, the whole kind of melodic, deep, sensual, whatever you want to call it stuff, you know, I was listening to people like, I mean, DJ Crust, you know. I discovered Jazz Note. I didn't know what it was for years, but I heard that track on Cool. I remember DJ Wildchild playing that, and I was just like, what the heck is this? You know, it was just, I'd never heard anything like it before. Like, it was just so innovative and creative.
Very advanced track, man.
And deep, and so, I mean, that track came out in what, 94? Yeah. 93, 94? And it still sounds like better than a lot of stuff that I heard today. So I don't know where he was, but that, you know, that's just what, that for me was the central point of like, right, I want to do something like this someday, you know. So, but for me, you know, people like LTJ Bookham, Goldie, Wax Doctor, Piche, Photech, you know, M-Beat, Just Jungle, those kind of people, I was just like, man, just the feeling. Because for years I didn't realise, I was like, what are these producers feeling when they make these records? And then as you know, as the years has gone by and I've met some of these people and I've spoken to them in depth, and they're telling me about their struggles, their pain and all of this, and I'm like, yeah, man, that's it. And I could relate to that. And in a way, that kind of made me realise that, you know, I didn't have to force music. I could just let it
just let
flow
it
out. So, you know, I realised that angle. And then basically Silky, you know, me and him knew each other back in the mid-90s. We was just kicking ball in the park and whatnot. And then eventually when we started making music, you know, he was the one that really kind of excelled a lot more than me. I was still very interested at that time. From growing up to pirate radio, I wanted to set up my own pirate radio station. You know, as much as I wanted to produce, but he really excelled with it. So you could say he was like a kind of a mentor to me. Even though I would say it to him and he'd be like, nah, yeah, whatever. But, you know, I was seeing what he was doing and he was making me realise, you know what, like I can express myself, because, you know, his background was like R&B and slow jams and all that kind of stuff, and he loves jazz, so he was coming from that angle and I was coming from my angle, but we kind of liked the same thing, you know what I mean? And then eventually we met Quest. I met Quest in 2002 and introduced Quest to Silky, and then, you know, them two as a tag team musically, you know, it's like a bomb. But a positive one, you know what I mean? So then when it was them two, I was seeing what they were doing and I was like, yeah. And those tracks that I was telling you that almost got signed to Ammunition, they weren't melodic at all. It was just like I was in the club in forward just hearing bass and I just wanted to just replicate that. But then when I was seeing their progression, they kind of made me realise like, yeah, you can actually express yourself. So, you know, them times the Ammunition thing was around 2002, but I would say it was around 2006 where I kind of got back into the production thing properly, and then when it hit 2007, got a PC, and then that was me. I just kind of started writing my album without actually realising what was going on, kind of thing. But, you know, I kind of look back on my musical history in terms of, you know, listening to music and, you know, people like, you know, even I remember listening to 808 State. What's that track?
Pacific State?
Pacific State. And, you know, the pads, the feeling. And I just, not that I wanted to replicate that vibe, but it's just that, I don't know, whatever they were feeling, it's like I felt like I was feeling the same way as them. So I kind of wanted to do it in our manner, in this whole dubstep format. Yeah, just kind of took it there. But it was kind of, I wouldn't say it was an accident, but it was very natural. It wasn't forced. And back then when I was getting into it, it was like I was kind of forcing it. I was trying really, really hard. So I kind of progressed along the years. But having Silky and Quest around me was a blessing, definitely, because they kind of matured my production skills, even though they're always probably deny and be like, nah, you was doing your thing or whatnot, but they really did inspire and influence my music making. But I knew I had my own style that I wanted to express, so yeah, they were definitely important to my whole journey.
Nice one, man.
Production wise.
And at this point, do you want to flick on one of your tracks?
Yeah.
Maybe one of the early ones, like Delayed Style or something.
Is this laptop actually on? I don't think it's on. I know. Yeah, I think it might need to be turned on again.
Just so while we're waiting for it to boot up, Delayed Style, and is it Candy is like one of the sort of really early ones?
Yeah, Delayed, well, in order of the tracks that I've got here, shall I play Delayed Style?
Yeah, man, that's one of my favourites.
Before I play it, I was on Rinse. I was playing on Rinse FM at the time, and I wrote that in, wow, is it April now? It's April, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right, so if I wrote that in 2008, is that 5 years?
Yep.
Okay, I wrote that 5 years ago this month.
Cool.
5 years ago this month. I wrote Childhood and Delayed Style. And that was a point when I was going through a lot of kind of bad stuff in my life. But, you know, on the outside, everything was all perfect. I was starting to gig and tour and do all this kind of stuff. But, you know, personally, it was just deep. And that track kind of really does reflect, you know, my feelings of that time. Like, it's like almost like you're trying to do something, but you couldn't grab it. So even like with the, you know, the drum patterns, everything's all delay. I'm just slapping delays everywhere, but it kind of replicates my kind of life story, like kind of thing. So yeah, man, I give it a play. I hope I'm doing this right. Yeah, it's playing. How do I turn this up? Yeah, it is playing. It's just playing a little bit low.
Yeah, man. So you made this back in 2008?
April 2008, yeah. April
Nice one.
2008, man. And I had no idea what I was doing at the time. But when I had actually completed it, because this, you know, it's weird. It's like all the other later tracks on the album, it took a long time for me to finish them tracks. But that point there, it was like I was on a roll, and I was just, it was like coming up with the idea and then finishing it literally the next day, like kind of thing. And I just remember just, you know, I was just saying to you before, I remember watching that documentary, a house documentary on Channel 4 around 2002. You know, it was a great documentary, and I remember Derek May talking about, you know, when he made Strings of Life.
Yeah.
You know, and he said when he made it, he was standing. Well, I weren't naked when I made the track. I had clothes on, but he said he was naked, you know, watching the skyline and everything, and he said he was scared, and that is literally how I felt when I made it. And I remember I played it out for like one of the first times, and just seeing people's reaction. I just remember it was a drum and bass event. You know, but I just remember someone being on the dance floor and someone was actually following the pattern of the drums. Like this one person like on the dance floor, like it was hilarious. But so seeing people's reactions to something that I made, you know, and it wasn't something that I'd forced. It was literally like my own story. It came straight from the heart, you know. So so yeah, but that definitely represented me at that time, the way how I was feeling, you know, in my life, and it kind of just gave me more juice for me to carry on making more tracks, you know what I mean? Because I was actually happy with it. I mean, apart from, at the time when I was in anti-social entertainment, apart from like people like Silky Quest, J5, Resurrector, Chrome Star, you know, all Harry Craze, Misbeats, apart from us, there wasn't really anybody else kind of writing what we was writing. We was like in our own zone, you know, and don't get me wrong, it did seem like everybody was on our side, but there was people that were saying, nah, this is too soft, or it's too melodic, or it's too this, it's too that. And I always used to say to people, well, you can't tell me how I should express myself. You don't know how I'm feeling.
No, exactly.
You know what I mean? And them same people are the people right at the front, like, yeah, you know, when you're playing it out. So people are always going to have something to say if you're doing something different out the box, you know, outside the box, you know. So yeah, man.
And around 2008, I read that was kind of when you first started to think about making an album as well.
Yeah.
Was it Delayed Style that kind of led you into having the ideas about making an album? Was it another track? Or?
It was one of the tracks, because I made Delayed Style and the title track for the album, Childhood, in the same month. And I think, what did I write first? I think I made Delayed Style, then I made Childhood. And then when I wrote Childhood, that's when I was like, well, I've just made Delayed Style and I've done Childhood. And Childhood is like a kind of a tribute track to, like, you know, the jungle drum and bass scene with all the people who I grew up listening to. And that's when I was like, well, boy, I wouldn't think it's such a bad idea if I wrote an album. But at that time, I didn't realise how hard it was to write an album. I put a lot of pressure on myself. I was like, yeah, I'm going to do an album and it's going to come out at this time and whatnot. But, you know, some people were saying to me, you know, it's easy to do an album, and I was just listening to them, and I was like, okay, cool. But if you're coming from within, it's not easy, because you have to get it pitch perfect to how you want it, you know, within how you feel. You know, nothing on there. There can't be anything on there that you're not happy with, you know. So I had to make sure my story was in, you know, in the right place. You know, all the sonics was all in the right place. The soul was in the right place, the technicality was in the right place, you know, and I was always, you know, putting myself down. You know, it's like I was Gene Slater, man, for me. Stenders, like some bipolar disorder. It's like 1 minute I'm like, yeah, it's all good, the next minute I'm like, oh, it's crap. It's like up, down, up, down. It emotionally wrecks you, man.
It's the real story of a tortured artist, isn't it? It's like almost anyone that I know that I've interviewed and spoken about doing an album has said, it's a torturous process.
Yeah,
you just want it to be perfect because
it destroyed me,
man. Out there.
It destroyed me. So you know, and you know, I wrote those tracks, the early tracks in like 2008, and at that time I was living Delayed Style, Childhood, Arena One, Retro Love. I all wrote at my mother's house. I was still living at my mum's house. You know, started writing it in 2007, and then Candy, which I might play in a little bit here. That was the first album track. Well, first track that made that album, because there was other tracks I'd made before, but they didn't make the album. I put them to bed. But that was the first track that I made when I moved into my own place, when I moved to Windsor. And when I wrote that, it was weird, because I'm going to be dead straight up and down, man. Like, I had an argument with my missus, and I wasn't happy. And I just remember looking at the clouds. It was all dark. Everything was just all moody, and I was in some... I just wanted to make a moody track, you know what I mean? I wanted to make something with no melodies, no soul, no nothing, just dark, just black, you know what I mean? And I just remember going into the shop, and I never drink Iron Brew, and I bought a can of Iron Brew, and I remember I started the track, just came up with, you know, the groove, and the actual alto sax, the sax that's in the track, it was actually a piano. Because the way how I write, you know, my sounds, sometimes I write the riff and I'm just going through certain sounds. I don't necessarily just always choose it and then it's that, you know. And I remember just having the piano, and I just remember just changing it and getting the sax. And I was like, okay, I can go somewhere with it. And by the time I finished the track, it was all sunny and everything. You know what I mean? It was like some sweet flavour around the air, man. You know, and that's when once again, that's when I thought to myself, I'm kind of getting somewhere, you know. But at that time, Silky was writing his album. I think he'd just finished it. He was writing City Limits. I mean, his progression was just incredible. He actually had tracks, like a whole heap of tracks where he was like, nah, they're not going on an album. This is if you spoke to him,
he'd be
probably,
like,
you know,
it was hard, it was tough.
You know, but you know, I just saw his process, and the more I saw his, not that I was watching him, but the more I saw his process, because obviously as a DJ I was taking his music, his album tracks, and playing them on the road, and all of that, and the more and more as the days went by, I was just thinking to myself, damn man, this is not an easy process, and the pressure just kept weighing me down, and then I became a father, and then that's when everything changed. Yeah. But it changed for the best. Looking back, now that it's come out, I can sit back and listen to it and watch, and I'm a little bit proud, you know. But at the time, I was just like, man, I was just, I'm telling you. But people think I over-exaggerate, but I'm glad, because at least when people buy the album, it's true, it's real. You know, because you know, a lot of people sent me messages, and you know, they said that they were like, I don't know what you were feeling, but I know you were feeling something. And that's the same thing what I was saying about when I was listening to all the Jungle guys. And exactly, I knew I could feel something. And that's the beautiful thing, and that's why it's all worth the headache and worth the stress and the emotional distress, you know. So, but I'll play you Candy. I'll play Candy.
man, that's such a good track, man. Really, really good track.
I do like that one. I do like it. I'm not really one for me to be boasty or anything, because I'm the first person to say, oh, that's crap, you know, any of my stuff that I make. But when I finished it, yeah, I was pretty proud. I think that's the word to use.
Yeah, so you should be, man. So
yeah, because I love 808s. I love the whole, you know, 808 thing, and you know, the pads and the groove and the funk. And I always wanted to, you know, kind of express myself in that format, you know, have my own story. And yeah, when I wrote that, that was, yeah, I'd say that's definitely one of my favourite tracks on the album.
Brilliant,
definitely.
man.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, we're gonna have to wrap this up, but
yeah, man.
Just before we finish, do you wanna? You've got any sort of last words, any messages you want to give to people that are watching right now?
Yeah, man. I mean, you know, anybody that's starting to write music, you know, what I would always say to people is just stay true to yourself, man. You know, you don't have to force things out. You know, if you're feeling a certain way, you know, and someone else is telling you otherwise, you know, stick to your guns, kind of thing. That's what I'd always say, because I remember people was always saying I was going in the wrong direction or whatever, and I was confused, and then I kind of went with my heart, and it worked out for me, you know. And all of my other idols, they've gone through the same thing. So that's you know, all I would really say to anybody if you're starting out. But you know, other than that, I'm just kind of glad that the album is out. So if you haven't heard it, it's out now on digital format on my label Gangsta Boogie Music. We're going to be doing a limited edition vinyl, so that's going to be for the summer. Right. So that's coming out, and I just mastered the second release for my label. I'm not going to say what it is now, but just have a look out for Gangsta Boogie Music and Flex FM, my radio show that I play every Thursday afternoons, 2 p.m. till 4. And yeah, that's where you'll catch me kind of innovating and keeping the soul rolling. So yeah, man, but pleasure. Thanks very much for having me.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Really
and I just wanted to read this out for you. Scott Garcia.
Oh yeah.
Says, locked in, big up Heny G, super talented guy.
Yeah, he's one of my idols as well. You know,
he's an idol for me.
It's funny over the last couple of years, because he was playing on Flex.
Yeah.
He was playing on Flex FM with me. It's pretty mad, like, because we've worked together and stuff. I done a remix for him for Robbie Craig and DJ Power DEA a couple of years back. So yeah, I got to big up Scott. If it wasn't for people like him as well, then I definitely wouldn't be sitting here. So nice one, Scott. Certainly, mate.
Quality. Thanks a lot, Heny.
Yes, nice one, Marcus.
And we're going to wrap this up now. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Don't forget, subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can catch loads of tutorials and masterclasses just like this one. And tune in again next Friday, 4 p.m. for another Friday Forum Live. Thanks very much.